Since moving to New York City, I've had people both who live in the city and people outside the city ask me, what's it like raising a child in New York City? And I never quite know how to answer that question, so I thought I'd just show you. This is what it's like to be a dad who happens to live in New York City. Cue the montage. The reason I have trouble answering that question sometimes is because sometimes the question, depending on who it's coming from and how it's asked, feels like more of a statement than a question. Like, what's it like raising kids in New York City? Maybe it's all just in my head and it's just me feeling like it's asked in some kind of judgy way sometimes. But it just feels like, like would you ask someone in Greenwich, Connecticut, what's it like raising a kid in Greenwich, Connecticut? It definitely feels like there's a type of way that people ask me that question, despite the fact that there are nearly 2 million children in New York City. Really, New York City presents, I think, about 3 unique things about it. So I'm gonna talk about those things and then give you some thoughts about just being a dad in general, since this is pretty new to me as well. It's only been a year and a half, and I'm still learning as well. First thing, subways. New York City, obviously, you're taking the subways everywhere. And taking the subway with a stroller, if you don't have any help, presents a unique set of challenges. First, you have to check which subway stations have elevators. So you're gonna have to plan your destination, not your destination, but your route to your final destination based on which subway stations have elevators. But that's not all. Then you have to go to another website or another page on the MTA's website, and you have to check which of those elevators that are in those subway stations happen to be working at that time. Once you check the website that there's an elevator, once you check the other page that the elevator is working, now you have to pray that it's true, that elevator is actually working when you get there. Like if you have help, if I'm going somewhere and my wife and we're all kind of going together as a family, getting a stroller up and down the stairs isn't that big of a deal. Luckily we're in pretty good health, and we just consider it part of our exercise. A little bit of squatting, a little bit of lunging up the stairs. I call it like my little clean and jerk to get the stroller up the stairs. So if you have help, it's really not that big of a deal. And if you don't have help, the kind people of New York will usually step up to help you. Somebody will offer to help you carry the stroller up the stairs, however many they are. You can always depend on the kindness of strangers in a city like New York. I consider myself a dad who's pretty, innovative, I guess, or pretty handy. I don't know what you would call it, but you can figure out a way to as quickly as possible anyway, get the stroller up and down the stairs by yourself. My technique has been take the kid out, hold him, collapse the stroller with one hand, carry stroller up the stairs with one arm, son in the other arm, and get to the top of the stairs, reassemble the stroller, put the kid back in. It's cumbersome, but it can be done. Okay, number 2, this one's not really unique to New York City, but we've resisted the temptation, urge, pressure to immediately buy a house with a yard. And when I say resisted, I also mean we were completely priced out of a absolutely ludicrous housing market in Toronto. And being in New York, obviously, housing is it's not even more unattainable. Needless to say, we're in the city. We're not feeling that pressure to get a house. The point is, without that, we obviously are giving up certain conveniences that having a house would afford you. Things like having a backyard, limited storage. We have to share a laundry facility. We don't have a parking space, therefore, having a car doesn't make any sense. Having a car doesn't make any sense in New York City for a lot of reasons, but the price of parking and the whole hustle around maintaining and having a parking spot in New York City is a whole other game that I'm just not interested in playing right now. Our last apartment in Toronto was the only time I had laundry in my apartment. I didn't have to like share a laundry facility. I've never really had a backyard. Never really had a lot of those like housing conveniences. So for me, it didn't feel like I was missing much. But what we do have access to New York City is 2,000 parks, 1,000 playgrounds. So there's no shortage of places for my son to run around, or for him to play and exercise and get the energy or expel the energy that he needs. The problem though is those playgrounds, those 1,000 public playgrounds are sometimes not in the greatest shape. Because they're public, anyone can go into them. So sometimes there's a lot of trash, sometimes there's debris that's kind of blown into those playgrounds. And it's things that are either just uber gross, dangerous, or just generally things you just don't want your kids playing with. So luckily, the building complex where we live, I think, has like 10 different playgrounds available to us. Some of them have water features and just different things, ways of cooling the kids down in the summer. And we find those are just generally more frequently maintained. So they're cleaner, they're a little bit more, safer. And it gives you that community feel because everybody in the building complex around here uses them, so you kind of get to meet other parents, and all our kids kind of go into the same daycare using the same playgrounds and are just around. So we're starting to meet different parents and different people in the neighborhood. And honestly, my son is starting to make friends and recognize different friends from his daycare and different people that he's sort of played with over time. So. Which that obviously helps with fostering that sense of community, which as a transplant in New York City is something that's really hard to come by. One of the reasons I feel that people think of New York City as a place that's inappropriate to raise children, or maybe not safe, or just undesirable as a place to raise children, is the perception of increased crime and other social issues that are just generally much more on display here in a big city as opposed to other places where they're sort of just kind of lurking in the shadows and they're not like in your face. But according to a BBC report, you're far more likely to be a victim of crime in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for example, or Indianapolis, Indiana, than you are here in New York City. But there are other social and economic issues that become, they're just more visible here in New York City than maybe other parts of the country. And maybe one day my son's going to ask me why there's a person sleeping on the street, or why a certain group of people is gathered, in line waiting for food at like a soup kitchen, or why somebody is mentally ill, and why somebody is in the situation that they are. And as someone who does a lot of traveling and plans to continue doing a lot of traveling and plans to travel with my son and our entire family, whether it's New York City, whether it's Rome, or somewhere in Texas. At some point, my son and I are going to have a conversation about some of these social issues or some of these things that he's going to see in the world. And I, as a father, I never want to be, whether I'm here, whether I'm in Toronto, wherever I am, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't want to be the kind of person who hides the world from my son. He's a curious, adventurous, confident boy who just loves to explore. He loves to meet people with a smile, and I always want him to be that way. I don't want him to be like, I don't want to hide him from the world or hide the world from him. So if we have to have a conversation one day about some of these things, then I'm hoping that he can learn empathy. He can learn that he has to share this space, that he has to share this city, he has to share this planet with people who don't look like him, with people who don't talk like him, with people who are in different economic situations than him. Even at his age, as confident as he is, as bold as he is to like try new things and challenge himself, whenever he feels like there's something that's too much for him, or he's kind of like pushing the limits, or he might not quite achieve what he wants to achieve, he'll always turn around and reach out his hand. He knows that I'll be there, that his mother will be there, that somebody will be there to help him. And that makes me really proud as a father. And sometimes when I know that when I've seen him do something before, and this time maybe he's a little nervous about doing it again, I'll challenge him and say, like, you can do this. I've seen you do it. Try to do it yourself. And sometimes he'll figure out a way. Sometimes he'll maybe trip and fall, but that's not the end of the world. He's going to learn. So those are the three things that I feel are like that most in-your-face challenges, I guess, that face me as a father, raising a kid in New York City. But there's this weird thing about being a dad that I don't think enough people, I've never heard anybody talk about, and maybe, again, it's just unique to me as somebody who's, I'm pushing 40 this year, and really, like, nothing makes you confront your own mortality more than, like, having a kid. And, as I'm, inching closer, not so much inching, but, like, about to be hit with a train that says I'm 40 years old, I can't tell you how many times I've done the math in my head of, like, how many Christmases, how many summers do I realistically have left on Earth, and how many Christmases and summers do I have left with my son? Like, what milestones will I see him achieve? Will I see his wedding day? Will I watch him graduate? And even if in doing that math I exceed my best estimates for my longevity, it's still not a lot of time. So I'm at a point in my life where absolutely nothing is going to be more valuable than my time. And so when I'm called into a late meeting and if I have to be at the office 3 days a week, I have to really think about whether that's how I want to spend my precious time, my precious hours. One of the things that I think needs to happen is I need to get over my own fears and my own insecurities and really push for the dreams that I want so that I can afford to spend the time that I want in the way that I want. So I just have to really think about how I align my time and where I can get my priorities to align with my time. Not just because I want to spend more time with my son or spend more time with my family, but because when I tell my son to take risks and to really go after his dreams and tell him that anything is possible, I don't want him to believe me just because I say so. I don't want him to believe that anything is possible because some athlete, celebrity, or YouTuber tells you it was possible. But first and foremost, I want him to believe me because he will have watched his dad do it and make it happen. So that's the biggest challenge of raising a kid. So if you have any ideas on how I can overcome that, I'd love to hear them. I'd love to hear your comments below. Until next time, peace out.